So here we are going into Dreamweaver like you've opened it for the first time, and let's give it a whirl. Let's move this out of the way, and I'm going to actually just launch Dreamweaver so we can really see how it looks. I think to remember as we're launching here, Dreamweaver will quit on you like a bad date. So as you work, save, 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 save. Because all of a sudden you'll hear your hard drive wrangling up and then bam, it's gone. So here we are at the Dreamweaver welcome screen. And it shows your most recent files that you've worked on. Most of the times I'm opening an HTML document, or I'm creating a new HTML document. I might be creating a new CSS document, maybe a JavaScript PHP document. Over here they have videos you can watch, advertising, so you can give Adobe more money. So in this situation, I'm just going to click HTML, and that welcome screen goes away, and we're into Dreamweaver. So here we go. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to open a recent file. How about this? Dreamweaver video tutorials old. And in a second, everything's going to pop up. Now, the site looks nothing like my page looks on my website, and get used to that. If you have a very simple page, some text, some basic images, then it might show up well, but I have clients that complain all the time. It's like, well, why can't it just show what it looks like, when it's going to be on the internet? Well, Dreamweaver doesn't look like that. You have these little buttons up here, and I can click the live button right here, and that will give you kind of an idea. Yeah, that's pretty good depiction of what it's going to look like on the internet. I turn the live button off, and we're back to the way it really looks in Dreamweaver. So get used to it, get over it, whatever you have to do. Now, as far as panels go, well, let's look at the different views here. These three buttons are very important. Right now, design is selected, so I'm seeing what the page with the images and the color of the text and all that kind of stuff looks like. If I go into code, I can see my HTML right here, or many designers like to work in split mode. So I can see my code over here on the left, the page on the right. I can select items and it goes right to where the item is in the code. Pretty handy. Okay, handy dandy, handy dandy. Okay, so you have your code view, your split view, your design view. This page, let's go into the code. If I go up here into the head tag, I can see that this page is connected to some external CSS style sheets right here. And we'll be going into CSS in depth through these titles, but how do you remember what CSS documents you're connected here to? I'm connected to 2 external CSS style sheets, but whenever you open an HTML document, it will show you what files are connected to it. So I'm connected to this CSS document here. If I click that, it'll show me my CSS. And then for responsive web design, I have a resizing CSS document here, which shows me all of my media queries. We'll get into that in another title. And then to go back to my regular document source code for this HTML document, I'll click here. Now I'm looking at my source code again. That's very handy dandy, handy dandy. Now let's go into design mode. Similar to most Adobe products, of course, Dreamweaver was developed by Macromedia and purchased by Adobe. But similar to Adobe products or Macromedia products, all panels are found by going to the Window drop-down menu. And one of my favorite panels is the Properties panel. And I'll click Properties, and here it is. I really like the Properties panel because it shows you what is going on with any selected item. So if I click over here on Video Tutorials, it shows me that this is a class, a CSS class. It shows I can click here to select a different class option. It shows me what I am linked to right here. I can make it bold, italic, whatever. If I click on the image, it gives me image information. The source of the image, it's in the images folder, It's a link that goes to the home page of my website. It shows me the width and height of the image. I always have the Properties panel readily available. And I just leave it pretty much down here. I'm going to resize my Dreamweaver page so you can see it. Another panel that I use all of the time is the CSS Designer panel. And I'm going to shrink that down, and you'll notice that it shows all of your sources for your external and internal embedded style sheets, and I can click up here and then it gives me more information about those CSS items down here. It also, let's make that smaller so you can see what's going on. You can see the properties of different CSS items down here in the properties area, which doesn't give you very much room to look around. But if you take your styles or your CSS Designer panel and widen it as such, then it gives you many different options so you can change things on the fly. You can see all of your properties. And this is new to Dreamweaver CC. So I really like this. It was confusing going from CS6 to CC, but it's very handy dandy. I like it. So there's my Properties panel, my CSS Designer panel. Let's close the CSS Designer panel. Another panel that I really like is the Snippets panel. And in the Snippets panel, I'll do a title just on snippets, but this is a place where you can save code and use it again and again and again, the code that is. So I leave that readily available. And sometimes when you're using JavaScript, there is a panel in here, it's called the Behaviors panel. Behave. And there are ways, if you're not using CSS rollovers, you may be using JavaScript rollovers, and the different actions, so to speak, will show up here in the Behaviors panel so that you can manipulate them, stuff like that. What other panels do we want to take a peek at? I would say for panels, those are the ones that I use. Now notice up here it says Bill the Geek's Workspace. Sometimes what I do is I'll get my favorite panels out, and then you can define your own workspace. And I can come down here to the window drop-down menu, go to Workspace Layout, and I can just create a whole new workspace. And I'll give this some name, my video intro web space. And I'll say OK. So here we go. Now up here it says my video intro web space. And it brings in all the panels from where I created this situation here. If I go back to Build the Geek's Workspace, then it comes in, and it comes in with no panels because that's how I set it up. So you can actually set up your own workspace. The more you work with Dreamweaver, the more you're going to get into CSS and what is where, and you're going to be putting images in div tags or text in tables. So I think a very important thing to look at is this little area down here. I call them the quick tag inspectors. And this is telling you that this image is in a div called logo, and the div called logo is in a div called header, and the header is in the body tag. And you'll be working in Dreamweaver with div tags or in tables or whatever, and this is a great way to, you can come in here and click on something and see where it is, how it's selected on the page, what area it takes up in the page. I'll click up here and it'll give me different information about that item, and it makes it so that I can identify the div and go in and edit that div in CSS. Now, we've already been into live view to see what our page looks like, but sometimes that really doesn't even show you what the page really looks like. And the real best way to see what your page looks like is to come over here to this little globe and just see what it looks like in the various browsers. When you first launch Dreamweaver, there will be no browsers that show up here. It might drive you a bit nuts. So you can just come in here and go to Edit Browser List right here, and then you can come in here and select, you can browse for editors, whatever's loaded, your primary browser, your secondary browser, and then that browser, whatever you select, will show up in this drop-down menu. You really need to do that. Another very important thing to consider is if you look at your code, my code's nice and big. I'm not going to go blind looking at my code, but by default, this code is set at like 7 points or something. That'll surely make you go blind. But if you go into your Dreamweaver preferences, and I'll see this preferences panel, and then I come down to fonts, which I don't know if that really makes sense, but I go into fonts. You can see code view right here, and where it says size, you can, by default it comes out at 7 points, but you can make it smaller, bigger, and make your eyesight go on much longer in Dreamweaver land. So there you go. There are my favorite panels: your code view, your split view, your design view, your live view, your browser view. I will talk about the title of the page just for the heck of it. Of course, the title, whenever you open a new document, it comes out with untitled document. Well, the title of the document is what shows up at the top of the browser. So if you were at the New York Times and you went up here and you typed in the New York Times, well, that's what's going to show up at the very top of the browser window in any browser. And I'll just hit enter on the keyboard that's going through the code. It shows up in the title tag, and that's kind of important for SEO situations, but we'll talk about that later in another title.